Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fuel Positive's channel. We're sitting here once again with Ian. We want to dive into some recent developments. But first off, Ian, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Michael. Thank you very much for asking. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty wonderful. So let's dive in. You got three big updates you've put out in the past week or so. Let's dive into your corporate update you guys did on July 15th first.
Sure. Yeah, we hosted a webinar with our investor relations group in New York City, RBMG. It was incredibly well attended. There were over 250 participants. We've had, I think, about 300 views subsequently. So clearly, the message was well received, and more people are trying to learn more about the company, which is great. So we covered a lot of ground in the webinar. It's now available on our website. So I instead of going through what we talked about, I think that, you know, if people are very interested in it, it's about an hour long. So it's a big commitment in terms of time, but we got into a lot of Q&A in it that I think was really relevant and again, very well received. So that's definitely something that I'd like to point people to.
For sure. And everyone, the link to the website is in the description below. So if you have an hour of your time, I really suggest going there and watching the webinar itself. All right, Ian, let's kind of shift gears a little bit. You guys have had some recent updates and related to who you've been working with. You hired Andre Meck as a strategic carbon credit and emissions reduction specialist. Now it's a lot of big words. Can you break it down what Andre's coming on to do?
Yeah, well, of course, for us, generating carbon-free ammonia is a carbon credit eligible material. So historically, ammonia has an incredibly big carbon footprint, so it hasn't been eligible for carbon credits. So the shift towards carbon-free ammonia, which we're spearheading, means that we can generate carbon credits that then we can market those credits, sell those credits basically through different exchanges around the world to generate income specifically related to the carbon credits. A good example of this, of course, is Tesla has been doing this since the first car they built, and a big portion of their income, in fact, has been attributable to the selling of carbon credits throughout different markets around the world. So it's a complex system. It's very challenging to navigate. There are different regulations geographically around the world. So we realized that we needed someone like Andre, who has a couple of decades of experience in this space, to help us find the most, well, lucrative in one hand, but also the markets that are easiest and most accessible for us as well. So we're heavily focused on that. It ties in, of course, to our business strategy and our rollout strategy for our systems. So Andre is playing a very significant and meaningful role as those plans take shape.
Yeah, as you mentioned, this is definitely not an incredibly easy process, and bringing on a seasoned veteran in that is definitely a positive move. And speaking of bringing people on, you guys just today announced you guys hired Sussex Group to provide government relations services. Can you dive into that a little bit deeper?
Sure. Well, as a Canadian technology company with a technology that we're going to roll out in Canada initially, we want to make sure that we've got the most significant federal and provincial support for our rollout. Our stated plan is that we'll be launching demonstration systems into the market early in 2022. So we want to make sure that all the various stakeholders are on side, really supporting this activity, because we potentially represent a fossil fuel replacement technology. It's quite threatening to Canada, which of course has a huge fossil fuel industry. And the transition away from fossil fuels, of course, is an inevitability. So we want to make sure, again, that we're working with very supportive stakeholders and government cheerleaders, if you will, as it relates to making sure that our message is clearly understood, that it's seen as a very positive move away from fossil fuels. The neat thing about what we're doing is that a lot of people who would work in the oil and gas industry would have a tremendous opportunity in the carbon-free ammonia industry as it relates to fossil fuel replacement. So we think this is a great job opportunity for for highly trained people to really just make a move sideways from carbon-based fuels to carbon-free solutions like what FuelPositive represents. So that's going to take a lot of good, positive support, both at the federal and provincial level. So Sussex is really well placed. They do a lot of environmental work. They do a lot of work in energy. They do a lot of work in northern communities, which is another area of great interest to us to help northern communities decarbonize by replacing diesel generation with the creation of carbon-free ammonia and using ammonia as carbon-free ammonia as the generating fuel for electricity in the north. So a lot of different initiatives that Sussex will be involved in the coming months and years.
Yeah, wonderful. You know, there definitely is a social and governmental inertia around sticking to fossil fuels, but I think the time people are becoming more aware of the issues of fossil fuels, and I think we're starting to see a change, and it's good to be on board and pushing for that change to actually happen now, because it will take a little bit of time, as you had said. Well, Ian, thank you so much for coming on. If anyone has any questions, don't be afraid to send them over to us. We'll be happy to answer anything you guys got. Once again, the link to the website's in the description below. You should check out the webinar and stay tuned. We'll get some more news to you over the wire as it comes across. Ian, have a wonderful day.
You too, Michael. Thank you.